This is a story which doesn't begin one fine day. This is a story which begins one dark night. It's the story of Robin Hood. And it begins, I think, on a dark night, for it was a night of dark dreams. Robin had a dream, and the dream that he dreamed was this. He dreamed that a stranger came to the wood, a stranger whose face was hidden, who was wearing a cloak of horsehide. And Robin dreamed that he and the stranger fought. But the dream ended before Robin learned whether he won or whether the stranger won. So the next day, Robin told the dream to Little John, for it seemed to him that it was a message or perhaps a premonition. It seemed so real. And perhaps Robin, brave as he usually was, felt a sense of foreboding. And Little John, ever a practical person, said, "It was nothing but a dream, Robin. Let it go. Come, let us walk through the forest." And as they walked through the wood, they saw, sitting against a tree with his back to the trunk, a character from Robin's dream. For there he was, a man whose face was in shadow, and a man who wore a cloak made from horsehide. And John said, "Come away, Robin. If he really is the man from your dream, perhaps it was a premonition. Perhaps you should believe in the message. Perhaps you should walk away." Robin, who had his bow and his arrows with him, and in fact his sword with him, said, "If I walk away, he will think I am a coward. I am afraid of no man." So Little John simply found another path, while Robin approached the stranger. And the stranger said that his name was Guy of Gisbourne. He was himself an outlaw, but he had been paid by the Sheriff of Nottingham to find and kill Robin Hood. And somehow the two men decided to compete at archery. Perhaps Guy wanted to know if the man in Lincoln Green standing before him really was Robin Hood. But one way or another, as perhaps men do, they competed. And of course, Robin, whose skills at archery were legendary, bordering on the magical, managed to split the withy wand. And at that point, Guy realised who this tall man of the Lincoln Green really was. And he pulled a dagger from his belt and he tripped Robin. And in that moment, as Robin lay on his back, seeing a dagger coming towards him, he pulled his sword, but he sent a prayer to Mary, Mother, the protectress of us all. And perhaps it was with her help that he managed to kill Guy. And he took his sword and severed Guy's head, leaving his body there on the ground for the foxes and the wolves. And the story says that Robin had an Irish knife. Perhaps it was his, or perhaps it belonged to Guy, for an Irish knife is a fighting knife, quite long, very sharp. He took the knife and he mutilated Guy's head, Guy's face, so that none would recognise it. And Robin took the blood-stained horsehide cloak from Guy's headless corpse and wrapped it around himself. He took his horn and blew a blast on it, knowing that that was the signal that Guy would send to the Sheriff of Nottingham to let him know that he had in fact killed Robin Hood. The story does not say how Robin knew where the Sheriff of Nottingham and his men would be, but somehow he found them in the forest. And he walked into a clearing with the horsehide cloak wrapped around him, his bow, his arrows, his sword, and holding a severed, mutilated head, which he claimed was the head of Robin Hood, the notorious outlaw. Then Robin saw, to his horror, Little John tied to a tree. "We are awaiting the hangman for him," said the sheriff, "for today has been such a good day. Not only have you killed Robin Hood, but I have captured John Little." So Robin, in the gruff voice that he put on to pretend to be Guy of Gisbourne, said, "Save yourself the hangman's fee. I will kill a second outlaw today." So Robin strode over to where Little John was bound and used his knife to carefully sever the bonds that held him. And he whispered something into John's ears. And then Robin turned, knocked an arrow to his bow, and with one arrow, one really good shot, he killed the unsuspecting Sheriff of Nottingham. And the two outlaws, Robin and Little John, escaped that day. And so that really is pretty much the end of many of Robin Hood's adventures, for there was no longer a Sheriff of Nottingham. Of course, Robin Hood's story ends somewhat later with his own death in a nunnery. But that is another story for another day. That's a very odd one, isn't it? Malcolm Busby, who's a brilliant storyteller, told that at Puka's pageant in Ipswich a month or so ago. And we had a debate about it and talked about it for a bit. Where does this come from? And it really does sound like a much, much older story. The earliest that anyone seems to be able to trace the Robin Hood stories to seems to be the reign of King Edward. And it's anyone's guess as to whether that's Edward I or Edward II. Edward I, the Hammer of the Scots. Not really likely to be Edward III, although it could be that was a very long reign. But there's elements of shamanism in there, and horses, of course, hugely important in northern European myth and legend. Sacred to Odin, and of course horses enable us to travel from one world to the other. I suspect that the Robin Hood legends are recycled versions of much, much earlier stories. That one certainly seems to go back a very long way. We don't generally wear horse leather, but some shamans' drums are made of horse leather. Strange story. There we are. So, working our way through the Chard Ballads, which is all that we have left of the old Robin Hood stories. So, hope to see you again soon.